Another day of our 40-day journey through the book of Mark. Now, we are in the final home stretch of this. We finally made it to Mark chapter 11, which is incredible. But I noticed as I was looking at the reading plan this morning that it totally skips over the story of blind Bartimaeus in verses 45 through 52 of chapter 10. And so, I would encourage you that if you're actually doing the reading plan, feel free to go ahead and finish the end of chapter 10, verses 46 through 52, the story of blind Bartimaeus. Even though it's not in your reading, go ahead and do that and then move on to chapter 11, which is the story of essentially the triumphal entry. We have now made it to Holy Week, the week of Passover, and at this point the timeline is going to slow down just a bit so that Mark has the ability to tell us as much as is possible about this final week before the crucifixion and the resurrection of Jesus. And, many of you know, but many might not be aware of this, that Mark is, as far as we can tell, the first letter that was written about all of these events. And so what you're really getting from Mark is the closest account in time to when these events happen. And so when you read what's happening here in Mark, this would have been, as this letter was passed around, the first that many people would have read about the accounts of these events. And so as we read through it, I kind of want you to read through it as though you're reading it through the first time. Maybe a story that you've heard, but for the first time you're actually seeing the timeline in print. And we actually make kind of an assumption that a lot of what is in Matthew and Luke is pulled from the book of Mark. Well, Mark included this in here, Matthew says, but let me give you my perspective. Or Mark included this in here, Luke says, so let me give it to you from this angle, from the other eyewitness accounts. And so Mark is an extremely important book for us when it comes to the Gospels and when it comes to really understanding Jesus and these timelines. And the triumphal entry, there's just so much tradition that is in this book whenever we get to the triumphal entry that it's difficult really to unpack all of that. But this idea of a triumphal entry is Jesus coming into the city of Jerusalem at the same time that all of the lambs would have been coming into Jerusalem from Bethlehem, about 6 miles out, in order for them to arrive at the temple for the Passover events. One of the primary components of the Passover event and experience each year annually for the Jews was the slaughtering of a lamb. And so families had to have their lambs, and so all of those lambs had to come from somewhere. Bethlehem was kind of the prize lambs because they were King David's lambs. And so whenever Jesus enters into the city of Jerusalem, he is entering into the city alongside and among this procession of lambs. Certainly there is a tremendous amount of metaphor tied up into this idea of Jesus, the one spotless lamb who is heading to what will be a sacrifice, coming into the city alongside thousands of spotless lambs which are coming into the city for sacrifice. In here we also have Jesus cursing the fig tree, which is Jesus essentially making a statement about Israel and Israel's rejection of him. And Jesus clearing the temple. As best as we can tell, this is actually the second time that Jesus cleanses the temple, turns over the tables, takes a whip to the money changers. We, from the best of our ability to read the scriptures, believe that Jesus did this once near the very beginning of his ministry when he was kind of a nobody, and probably at that point everybody thought he was crazy. But then when he does it here again a second time, it ignites a fire underneath the opposition. It's essentially a step too far in a series of steps that have gone way too far. In fact, when the leading priest, verse 18 of chapter 11 says that whenever the leading priests and the teachers of the religious law heard what Jesus had done, they began planning how to kill him. Up until that point, It doesn't seem that the intent was to kill him. It was to discredit him. It was to sideline him. It was to essentially turn him into a non-event. But at that point, he went a step too far by cleaning out the money changers in the temple. So why did they want to kill him? This was a cash cow for them. This is how they raised a tremendous amount of money. They were doing it on the backs of people who were poor. They were doing it in a place that caused people from other nations and women to not be able to worship because of the place where they were doing this money changing in. And it was essentially extortion for the people, using God in order to accomplish that extortion. And Jesus would have nothing of it. My house will be a house of prayer. My house isn't going to be a house of extortion. My house isn't going to be a place where people come and are taken advantage of. That's totally the opposite of what faith is supposed to be, and what my house is supposed to be, what the temple and areas of worship are supposed to be. This cannot continue. And Jesus drives them out, and they say, now not only is he causing us religious problems, not only now is he causing us attendance problems because people are following him, but now he's hit us where it hurts, the pocketbook. And so whenever Judas comes before them and says, you know what, I'll betray him to you, I will essentially start the process of saying that he is blaspheming God, then they say, we now have what we need to try to take care of him once and for all. And now the groundwork is laid for the events that come after. It's incredible to me that Jesus enters into the city. It's incredible to me. It's a little windy out here today. It's incredible to me. Jesus enters into the city to great fanfare during this triumphal entry, that people are with him. In fact, he drives the money changers to the temple. The word there on the street is in verse 18 that they began plotting how to kill Jesus, but they were afraid of him because the people were so amazed at his teaching. So even days before the crucifixion, literally days, hours before the crucifixion, the religious leaders did not think that they could take Jesus out because he was such a fan of the people. They loved him. And it just goes to show you how quickly evil and dishonesty can change the hearts of people against good and against God. And this is what happens with Jesus. And over the next few days, this is the story that we are now going to track through as we journey towards the cross, both here in the book of Mark, and as we journey towards the cross in our lives as well. April 4th is Easter. I'm looking forward to celebrating it with you online at christtable.today. I'm also looking forward to celebrating it with you in person. If you are in Jupiter, be paying attention to your email because we have secured a location for us to be in person together on Easter here in South Florida. And so I am looking forward to that, looking forward to sending you all of the information on it. And if you want to be a part of what we're doing here at Christ Table, we would love to have you. christtable.today is the place where you need to go. Just click the link that is attached to this post, and you can donate there. If you donate, I've got something that I want to send you for the 50 days after Easter. We're going to be doing a Bible study, and I'll send you a free copy of that Bible study for everyone who donates. But also, you'll be on the email list as well if you sign up for the email list so that you'll know what's going on Easter and where to go. Well, I hope you're enjoying this study. I'm enjoying it too. Thanks for being with us this week as I am away from my desk. I guess you could say I'm on assignment here on spring break. But until tomorrow, happy reading.